All right, let's talk about what's going on in Ukraine and what's happening with these food shortages. So, we have world experts coming together to say that we have widespread fertilizer shortages, supply chain issues, record droughts, the three major reasons behind this crisis. The world says that we only have 10 weeks of wheat supply left. 10 weeks, and we're done. Let's go ahead and put this up on the screen. Global food insecurity, they say, has reached levels not seen since the financial crisis of 2008. According to Sarah Menker, the CEO of Grow Intelligence, a global finance company, a global company that uses artificial intelligence and public and private data to predict food supply trends, she told the United Nations that the world has about 10 weeks worth of wheat on hand, simply adding fuel to the fire that has been long burning, basically. She says that the Russia-Ukraine conflict was not the cause of the food security crisis, but really it's like the last straw, right? This is the thing that caused everything to explode.
Yes.
She said the widespread fertilizer shortages, supply and chain issues, and the record droughts are the three major reasons behind this crisis. And she says this isn't cyclical, this is seismic. Now, when you go and you start to look at this data over the past couple of months, you know that they've been saying this for months.
Yes.
I mean, details about this food crisis go back to February, go back to January. You can find instances of it in late fall last year before the holidays. So what are we doing? This is another example of world elites totally failing their people.
But even in a normal year, right, over 670 tons of food get wasted and not distributed to poor places. So, it's a case of like wealthier people don't have to worry. They are going to be able to just pay a little more to get the supply that exists, right? So we really will realize, and when we get to talking about Afghanistan, about how it's not necessarily that there's not enough food right now. It's that we're not even bothering it to send it to people who need it the most.
So when you add that piece of it then on top of sanctions, right? This is the sort of major piece of all of this, which is Ukrainian-Russian war, and then the Western world comes together and throws in all of these sanctions. And so when you go through, this is the most recent general licensing number 6A. I want to put this up on the screen. This is the Office of Foreign Assets Control, the Department of the Treasury. These are the Russian harmful foreign activities sanctions regulations, right? And there's a bunch of things in here that are kept out, like they're exempted, right? But you've got like agricultural commodities, you've got food for humans, including raw processed packaged foods, seeds for crops, fertilizer.
Wait. Can I just make sure I understand? These are things that cannot be sanctioned.
Right. These are things that are removed from sanctions, right? The exportation or re-exportation of agricultural commodities, medicine, medical devices, replacement parts, components for medical devices, software updates for medical devices, or anything like that transiting from the Russian Federation. So like all of these things, right? Seeds for crops, fertilizers, organic reproductive materials, medicines, etc. The list goes on. Sure, there was, but look, bottom line is these things are being kept from that. And now all of that wheat that's coming out of Ukraine, of course, can't go anywhere because ports are blocked.
But also Zelensky put a no export rule as soon as the invasion began.
Right. And there's a lot of questions today around these mines in the port of Odessa, of course, the biggest port, and trying to get clarity on this, right? We covered the story yesterday here on the show, reports that Ukraine has planted mines in that port to prevent invasion, which, if you think about it, makes a lot of sense, right? They don't want large Russian ships invading through the southern part of the country. Why would they do that? And others are saying, well, I don't know, it sounds like propaganda. Are you a Russian apologist? Because clearly probably Russia planted those mines, which when you think about that makes zero sense, right? I mean, I don't know where that makes any sense, that Russia would put mines, they're the sea power.
That keeps them from attacking what they would want to attack.
Right. Makes zero sense to me on the face of it. And of course, there are plenty. And then if you add that to the tens of thousands of landmines that we do know that Ukraine has planted all through their country, It doesn't really pass the smell test. So now they've got all of the mines that are sitting in the Odessa port. You've got all of this grain that can't be planted, but also can't be distributed. And then today we have the Russians saying, hey, we are perfectly willing now to come out and allow the safe passage of grain ships out of Odessa. In fact, we will even escort them. We've got minesweepers, as long as you roll back some of these sanctions. Tit for tat. But of course, the Western media has different plans for this. So here is Fox News earlier today. Get out the military commanders, because you know how they're all about diplomacy. So always you got to drag out the military commanders. What's the best solution to get food to the human beings that need it the most? Right? What's the best solution here?
And to start with, I say, you know I'm going to do this. I say that job one in Ukraine right now is to open up the ports so Ukraine can export the food. And we should operate militarily to open up those ports. What say you?
Yeah, well, that's absolutely the right thing. The Secretary General of the UN is negotiating with Russia to remove the blockade so the cargo ships can get through and the export can take place. I don't believe he'll be successful. Hopefully he is successful. But if he's not successful, then I think what needs to be done, and I recommended this to the Wall Street Journal, and they editorialized it this morning, and that is to put together an international coalition of warships led by the United States, not just focused on NATO. We want the international community involved here, so Russia's not pointing a finger at NATO and the United States. This is a global humanitarian relief operation that we would be conducting with those warships. We stay in international waters, never leaving it, and go to the port of Odessa and let the ships obviously pick up the grain that needs to be picked up and then escort them out. There is some demining that would have to be done, and certainly we have the capability to do that. The other risk is the Russian Navy is there. They could see this as a provocation, and we could have a potential confrontation.
But that's just a sidebar issue. Never mind that, right? And by the way, Russia has warned against that. Like, you're going to bring all of your warships right to our doorstep?
Yes.
That's not going to fly. And here we are as the Russians saying, hey, here's our opportunity. Here's our deal, which is we're going to open up the port. We will escort these ships through these mine-laden waters. We have minesweepers. We will do what we can to get these ships through here and get this grain out of here.
Also, you know what else they have? Fuel to run those ships.
Right. Right. Imagine that. Yeah.
That was my point.
Oh, that was your point?
Go ahead.
Okay.
I interrupted you.
No, I'm
Keep
just, we're having a conversation about it. I just think it's interesting to hear, to hear Western powers have come up with solutions, and the solutions are right before your eyes, which is these sanctions aren't working against Russia. These sanctions are hurting the West.
Well, and it's crazy because if foodstuffs is on the list of exceptions, we are already trusting them to ship those things safely into the West, right?
Right.
So you can't argue that, well, we just can't trust them to do these kind of things if we do already trust them to do these kind of things.
Right.
So you don't need to bring in your big guns if we're already accepting trade on many different fronts. Then that doesn't make sense. This is not like it's a very thinly veiled excuse to bring your warships in, which was always a non-starter.
Well, that's exactly it, because like what do we not want? We can't have somebody that we've labeled as evil. You're evil Putin, you're evil Russia. We can't have them then doing humanitarian things, because then that destroys the narrative. So then we have no choice but like, no, you can't do it. We have to do it because we're the good guys.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
Right. Right. And doesn't it speak to just the total collapse of this whole system? I mean, just wait a minute. The United States has all of this additional food. Right?
Yes.
Have all of this additional food that goes to waste on a regular basis. We can mobilize $40 billion to send it into a war zone. We have no idea where these weapons are going. I mean, most of them, right? They've admitted as much at the Pentagon. We have no idea where they're going. Or if once they get there, we really can't track them. This money, I saw someone in my comments today, it's like, how much of this money just probably goes right into like Vladimir Zelensky's personal Swiss bank account? Like, there's no tracking of it. That's what Rand Paul was calling for, was a tracking of this money. And he was calling for the same oversight that we used in Afghanistan, which captured billions of dollars in fraud and waste, right?
Yes.
So imagine if we marshaled some of that money back home to build up a food infrastructure in the United States where we didn't have to worry about this. We don't have to have a special panel on baby food shortages or baby formula and call a hearing of Congress to find out how we can't produce baby formula in the United States of America.
Yes, it's awful. And it's just so confounding at this point, especially when the United States talks a big game about all of these sanctions, but never let us know. It's interesting that like software patches are on the list of exemptions. Like you can't sanction software patches because that would make us so vulnerable.
Thank you so much for subscribing to our channel. You know, we've been banned, we've been blocked, we've been censored. That's why we started our own website, to stay connected with you for free.
That's right. So head on over to redacted.inc and make sure you're connected with us. You can sign up again at redacted.inc, not .com.